stand. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wagner,
Here.
Commissioner Itica,
Here.
Commissioner Linder,
Here.
Commissioner Satanovich,
Here.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Here.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Here.
Chair Crushauer.
Here. All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as it is?
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Agenda is adopted as is. Business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a brief presentation about any land use planning issue or county concern that is not on the agenda. Nobody is in attendance, and I do not see anybody online either. All right. Discussion work session. Fiscal year 25-26. Work plan up.
Yeah. Good morning, Planning Commissioners. For the record, Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director. This is just a quarterly update to our current fiscal year work plan. This is something that is adopted by the board every year in conjunction with the budget, and it lays out the department's, and in this particular case, land use planning's work program for the fiscal year. And so just to have transparency and openness and accountability, we just give you a quarterly update to let you know where we're at in the program. And on this item, I'm just really here to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there an action item needed on page 4, 5, 6, then? Looks to me like really, okay,
Information only.
just information.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Is there major legislation that, that's going to affect Clatsop County land use planning that you're working on as part of this work plan that you have to modify things?
Yeah, we've done quite a bit. So in December, we did the legislative amendment package, which came out of the 2025 session. The 2026 session will start at the beginning of February. There will probably be some additional legislation that comes out of that will need code amendments. We also know that the state adopted rule changes to Goal 5 and cultural resource areas, and those will become effective January 1st, 2027. So later this year, you'll be seeing those amendments coming through as well.
Okay.
I was curious about page 16, update urban growth boundary management agreements, and what is completion of ordinance 2414 LUBA still?
Yeah, so we have agreements with each of the 5 cities about how land that's inside the urban growth boundary but outside the incorporated boundaries will be handled in terms of zoning and code compliance and building permits. And those agreements date back to the 90s, the early 90s, and they probably just need to be looked at again. I don't know if there will be significant changes, but they do need to be updated. Growth boundaries have changed. The way we handle different permitting types, such as STRs, where we actually handle Gerhardt's UGB, urban growth boundary. So just to update those again. And then the other thing that we need to update and look at is we have cooperative agreements with each of the special districts, so the fire districts, water districts, sanitation districts. And those really spell out responsibilities about how we manage growth and what the county's responsibilities are to the district and vice versa. Those were all put into place in 2003 when we established the rural communities, Miles Crossing, Westport, Arch Cape. So those need to be updated as well. And then we had put that work on hold because at the time we were in the middle of a Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA appeal for the housing amendments. And until that was done, we didn't want to start mucking everything up because we were relying on those cooperative agreements to establish our ability to document capacity at the special district level. So now that the LUBA remand has been heard and it was not reappealed, we have the ability now to move forward with those. Clear as mud?
Sure.
Any other questions? All right, moving on. Agenda item number 3, draft fiscal year 26-27 land use planning work plan.
Yes, so this is where I do need input from the Planning Commission. This is the plan that we are proposing as part of the fiscal year 26-27 budget. And these are the ideas that staff has identified, things that we know are coming our way, but also to see what the Planning Commission believes that we should be focusing on in terms of land use or items that we haven't considered or may have overlooked as we put this together. Really what we try to do is every year we try to tie the department's work plan to the board's strategic plan. And so you'll see that the plan is organized with, I believe, 8 different subtasks. 5 of those are tied directly to the board's strategic plan, which include governance, infrastructure, social services, economic development, and environmental and natural resources. And then we have our own ongoing code modernization and maintenance task. And then there are things that we're just required to do under state law, so that's just another group of tasks. And then there are special plans and projects that we are proposing to take on in the next fiscal year. So, for example, we will be working with Public Works, possibly in the coming fiscal year, to update our transportation system plan and also to do a minor update to the parks plan, which was last adopted in 2006. So those would be some of the special projects that we would be taking on. We know that we're going to have the legislative amendments. We know we're going to have the Goal 5 amendments that we're going to have to do. The board has a very strong focus right now on housing and economic development, so we were trying to put in more tasks related to that, including probably an overhaul to our commercial and industrial zones and just modernizing the language, changing and simplifying the approval process for certain types of uses, and just undertaking a lot of those types of projects. So what we've proposed to staff is spelled out in your commission package, which I believe begins on page 21, maybe 20. But really, we just want your input and direction. And then we can bring this back one more time in February. Our budgets will be officially submitted sometime in mid-March. So we need to have it all finalized by March. And I'm here to answer questions and get your suggestions.
Well, what I've read, beginning on page 20, I didn't really have a comment. Rather new just right now, but I might next time, unless there's something you wanted us to focus on.
No, I know that a lot of times you are out in the community, you sit on the Planning Commission, you have listened to meetings or listened to board meetings or have firsthand experience working with community development. So, we look to you because staff has a perspective. We see the things that we see, but you are out in the much larger world talking to various people and constituents. And so there may be things that you feel that the division needs to look at to improve our land use permitting processes.
Well, in my interactions, it's simplification. So those are the most common things you hear. Why is it so difficult and tedious or time-consuming? But I understand where that comes from, so anything that I can understand to explain it better would be, or if there's anything you can do.
I'm sorry, can you talk just into your mic, please?
So if there's anything that can be done to simplify that process, which you just mentioned, then obviously that's what I would be interested in, because that's what I hear when I interact with the community.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the biggest issue that we have is just the general public. Land use planning is a complex thing for the general public to understand, and if we can streamline that or have a process in place to get our public to, through that process as efficiently as possible, that's what we should be doing. And maybe looking at those timelines and how long it takes to get, both the planning side and the building side, processed, and anything we can do to speed that along, would be helpful. And I know there's just several issues with that, but I think that's the biggest complaint that I have, or that I've talked to other people about, is just the time that it takes to get an application through the process. And that goes for every jurisdiction that you're in. Everybody wants it to go faster, rather than just waiting around on paperwork to get processed, really.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's just something we could look at, more of the process part of it, and how application goes through the process and what's needed for, even if we started with a building permit for a house or an addition or whatever would be a typical application that someone would come across the counter, just to figure out how we can get that done efficiently. Maybe identify what roadblocks there may be for people, and see if there's be done to eliminate those. I think we have made some progress in the past few years to try to identify some of those things with development and opportunities where we may be able to do some different things with land use and add flexibility to people's property and what they can and can't do with their land. But there's more work to be done. It should be an ongoing thing to always try to make it better.
That's why task number 1 is modernization and maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that part of that, we're gonna be kind of set back a little bit, because there's a lot of retirement going, a lot of vacant positions that are gonna be filled, so those things are gonna take time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's gonna set us back in those, getting things done efficiently and effectively, because I know, every other jurisdiction in this county's went through it in the last year, and they're still going through it, and it's not been a pleasant experience in a lot of those places, for a lot of people. I don't know what we can do to help or to make things better with that process. That's gonna hold things up quite a bit in the next 6 months or so. So we got 4 or 5 people in key positions at your office and next door to you leaving.
Yeah, there's still a lot of change happening. I'm hopeful that following the wave of retirements in this fiscal year, that we will go back into a stabilization period, because we had a period of about 5 years where, we were pretty much the same staff, no changes and anything like that, but then everybody reached a certain age and just said, no, I'm done. I'm pretty sure pandemic hastened some of that.
Yeah.
More than it would have. But the people that we have coming on, I think will come up to speed pretty quickly, especially our new building permit technician who starts next week. And she should be, she's coming from the city of Warrenton, so their current permit tech. So.
Laura staying on for a while.
Yeah, Laura will be on just for a little bit, so there will be some overlap to train her. But after that, then Laura will just be casual. She's finishing up a special project. And then she'll retire at the end of June.
Are there any other questions, comments, anything that you want from us that you would we can bring back to you by next meeting, or?
Yeah, just, I've been telling staff this year, we've wrapped up several big projects this fiscal year, so we are almost completed with a comprehensive plan. We will have the strategic plan for the fairgrounds pretty much done by the end of the fiscal year. So that leaves up a lot of staff capacity to take on some of the bigger projects that maybe we could have put off or haven't thought about. I know David's going to talk to you later this morning about the role of the Planning Commission as the Committee for Citizen Involvement. And that's something where I think that we can do a lot more work, because as you can tell, our citizen involvement is not probably where it should be based on our meeting attendance. But really just trying to identify maybe some big projects that we can take on and, you know, look at over the course of the next year or two.
Anybody else have any comments? Anybody online?
Maybe revise the Ad hoc Wetlands Advisory Committee? No?
All right. Moving on, agenda number 4, Committee for Citizen Involvement Discussion.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm David Cook, the Planning Manager for the Community Development Department. As you may know, the state of Oregon requires every community to have a dedicated committee for citizen involvement, which is meant to help increase public involvement and participation. For some communities, this committee is made up of group members from, you know, the general public. For our county, however, your commission serves as this committee. The Committee for Citizen Involvement, which is a mouthful, I'm just going to call it the CCI from now on, so we're all on the same page. So the county's comprehensive plan, Goal 1, which is public involvement, has policies that does require the CCI to perform certain functions. For example, one policy states that the CCI shall be responsible for assisting the county with the development of a program that promotes and enhances public involvement in land use planning. It's something that the Goal 1 calls the Program for Public Involvement. Goal 1 also requires the CCI to review and provide input on this program on an annual basis. So to that end, and in light of state efforts to modernize public involvement, our department is seeking feedback from your commission. We're requesting that your commission, as the Committee for Citizen Involvement, consider options for better achieving the county's 3 objectives of Comprehensive Plan Goal 1, which is included in your agenda packet. Some options could be hosting more in-person and virtual meetings in like a town hall style for specific community planning areas, like Clatsop Plains, Southwest Coastal, et cetera. It could be more advertising or more variety of advertising for your existing planning commission hearings. It could even be having like a permanent portion of your monthly planning commission meetings where you dedicate time to receiving community input or discuss public engagement opportunities amongst yourselves. Staff can participate in this discussion today, and we can also, at your direction, circle back to this in February to give your commission time to think of options. On pages 42 and 43 of your agenda packet, Director Henriksen has included 2 graphics, which I think are really helpful to differentiate public involvement as required by Goal 1 and public meeting laws, which are required by state statute. So our department currently, right, we follow all public meeting law requirements, and we're specifically looking to your commission as the CCI to brainstorm ways for improving that public involvement portion as required by Goal 1. So yes, if any commissioner has any thoughts on opportunities for, you know, creating this public involvement plan or program for public involvement, where it could start, what types of things your commission can do to help further it, we can be here to discuss, and then at your direction, we can circle back in February if you want to take some time to think about it.
Can you also discuss the state level Goal 1 modernization work?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. So the Oregon State Legislature has started a process that to try and modernize the public involvement portions of Goal 1 for, you know, not less mail, but a more variety of options for public involvement. So, right, whether that's hybrid meetings, whether it's like having translations of meetings made available, that kind of thing. So there's no requirement from the state legislature yet, but they have directed the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development to start looking into this. And there, at some point, there could be new requirements as part of as part of the state's Goal 1 that would be required of community development at some point in the future. So by thinking about this now, we could be setting up for an easy transition with potential future requirements.
They're just trying to get us to get the public more involved. That's basically what, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, people obviously don't find it interesting or entertaining, or, I mean, they just don't show up.
Well, we also hold our meetings at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, so, you know, people who work probably can't attend those meetings either. That's a universal problem, you know. So there's always the timing issue. Part of it,
Since I've been here, it's always been at this time. I was
Yeah.
curious. The other meetings are in the evening time, right?
yeah, the city planning commissions are all in the evening. And so that's part of it, you know, because we have 5 cities, we have 5 weekdays. Nobody meets on a Friday evening, so
Gotcha.
you're always going to have conflicting meetings. Part of it may just be the subject matter that we're dealing with. It may be that we're not putting it forward in a way perhaps that is more understandable to the public, because some of it is pretty complex. The Army Corps goal exceptions, for example, or the updates that we just did to goal 16, 17, 18. You know, and maybe that's something that we can work more on in the coming year, is how to more clearly communicate some of these complex planning ideas so that people can understand that, hey, this might impact me in some way, or impact a piece of the environment that I care about, or, you know, place where I fish.
Any commissioners have any
Well,
comments, or?
I have one comment. I don't exactly know the answer to this, but, maybe it'd be possible to send out some type of survey and see what issues the public moves about, what we could focus on. And whether that's roads or parks or whatever it may be, what issues would the citizens be wanting us to work on? Or that's what we're here for, is to try to make the planning process better, and we're the committee for citizen involvement, so there are issues, we need to figure out what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't exactly know all the issues. I know what my issues are, but I don't know what everybody else's are.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Actually, we're just getting ready to put out our next quarterly newsletter for the department. So that would be a perfect time for us to have Public Affairs develop the survey, and then we can advertise it in the newsletter. We'll send you a link.
Get a response when we do things like that, or people just usually ignore them?
We usually get a response. Did we do one for goals 16, 17, 18? We've done it for the Safe Streets for All, which got a really big response, actually. But that was a public works project. We did it for the comp plan at the very beginning, and we've done a few other, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. I recall we did a survey when we had tried to update our accessory dwelling unit regulations, and I think we got like 120 responses, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and when we did the economic opportunities analysis, there was a survey component.
Seems to be that when something financially concerns people is when they're a little more interested, like the ADUs were a big one, I know that, because that's huge all over cities, county, everywhere. I mean, probably the biggest thing that I've heard people come to me and ask me about is if the county has any plans for septic waste dumping, because it's such a hassle right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been approached by probably a dozen people asking me if we have any plans for that. Probably one of the biggest ones that I've heard the concerns, because that affects people immediately, their pocketbooks and everything else. ADUs, those things, but
Water is another issue that we have, especially in Class of Plains with the city of Warrenton,
Yep.
putting a moratorium on people's properties outside of the city limits of Warrenton. They can no longer get water to their property. So if there are things that we can discuss with that and water availability and that's very impactful for people that want to do something with their property. And if you can't get water, you're where you stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would second that, because out in our east end, the water itself, we have real issues in LC Jewel water, potable water supply constantly getting contaminated and not having the resources to upgrade or the ability. And then I see, extended water districts like out to Olney area, and how that, I'd like to know how that came about with arrangement with the city. I realize that's quite a bit further out. There's a lot in between, but those kind of things I know our community would like. And in terms of getting the word out in Jewel LC, it's either the fire department or the school. That's where all the information runs through. And I'd be willing to try and work something there for a survey or a comment or, feedback.
All of our water districts are dealing with failing infrastructure, really, really old, really expensive to fix. You brought up to code, put new water lines in. They got to be much larger for fire hydrants, and really expensive. And these rural areas are struggling to deal with that problem everywhere in the county. So I think that maybe that's something that we could focus on. I don't know what the capacity of what the county can do. These are water districts. They're not necessarily under county jurisdiction, but it's part of county land use planning is water availability.
So that would seem to tie into the update of those cooperative agreements, where every year we should be working with the special districts to identify how much growth capacity they have, how much growth we've permitted in the year, and really coordinating ourselves. So I think there's a good opportunity there to accomplish several things that we need to do and want to do.
Could you give an example of cooperative agreement, how that works?
Yeah, it's, I think, a 5-page agreement that's, spells out the district's responsibilities in terms of growth management and utility provision, and the county land use division's responsibilities. And we should be annually letting each district know the growth that has occurred, that we've permitted. I don't have the agreements memorized, but I can bring one and put one in your next packet if you want, or email one out to you. But that's really what it is that we should just be coordinating, so that every year we can go to the water district and say, we're seeing this trend. We permitted 10 new homes in your district, but we just had partitions for, 10 more homes after that. Do you have the capacity to serve it? And that way, I think it helps us understand what the limitations are, but it helps the district understand what's coming at them, because they have to sign off on the development permits, but I don't know that there's a tracking mechanism for these smaller districts where they've got a chart on the wall that says 10 new homes here, 10 new homes here, potential for 10 more homes over here. Are we going to be able to serve all these houses? And so sometimes I don't know that because they're so small, so volunteer, and so stretched, that they are taking that big overarching view and looking at it in a compounding nature, as opposed to just a case by case, if that makes sense. But
now, when you say district, do you mean county district or district within a county, or like a water district, or?
yes,
Is that what
these are the special independent districts. They're their own little governments, so to speak.
There's no cooperative agreement for, say, District 5.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, it would be within that, okay.
Diking districts may be another area where that they're all struggling to keep people, and we have a lot of property that is behind dikes in rural Clatsop County. So that's another, just our agreements with them and just how we can work cooperatively with them. Another one, a lot of these are all special districts, I suppose, but
So what happens if one of these districts fails? Say, one of the water districts or the diking districts, and they just throw their hands up and they can't effectively run their district, and they just kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does the county step in and then take that over, or is that a state thing? How does that work? Like, say the water district, they just can't run it anymore, they don't have the volunteers, they don't have the time, they don't do it, but you have all these people that you have to serve, because water's a necessity, or the diking, you know, it has to be maintained. Does the county step in, take it over, or how does that work?
So, in the time that I've been here, and I am not familiar with all the state statutes that govern this, but there have been 3 or 4 examples since I've been here. The first one was when the Skipanon Water Control District dissolved, because they couldn't get members, and they actually dissolved their whole structure. And then the assets were divvied up between the city of Warrenton and Clatsop County. So there were some dams and waterways and whatever else they had out there, and then that became part of the public infrastructure. There was when the fire department needed to, I believe it was your fire department, needed to replace the members because of the recall.
Right.
And so, at that point, the county stepped in and they appointed a certain number of members to create a quorum, so that that quorum could then appoint the remaining members. And that way, that fire district was able to carry on. I had a third example, and now it's gone out of my head. In the case of the diking districts, I know that the county has taken over some of the diking districts where they're actively maintaining dikes. And I want to say it's down in Miles Crossing, Jeffers Gardens. I think it's Diking District 5, and then maybe District 14 that we are in charge of. And a lot of the diking districts are just listed as inactive. There's no contact, there's no maintenance, nothing is happening, and they're just there.
Wouldn't, for example, the Soil and Water Conservation District, they seem to be more directly involved in those kind of issues. Is that true, or is it with us? I mean,
So the Soil and Water Conservation District, as I understand their function, is they are really focused on individual landowners who are either trying to restore or enhance their soil and water areas. We have not worked very closely with them in the time that I've been here, and they seem to keep pretty quiet, so.
yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, but I don't think that they would have the wherewithal financially to take over diking districts and take on that work. Yeah.
I really like the idea of Commissioner Johnson brought up with a survey. I mean, we sent it out to all of the people that live in the county and ask them what their concerns are. I mean, people in Napa are gonna have different concerns than people in Arch Cape, and it's nice to see a broad perspective and give us some projects to work on, or we can all go through them together and say, okay, maybe prioritize them, or what could we do this year, and come up with some, and that kind of does a couple of things. That helps us with our goals going forward, and it gets the citizens involved, and we can get it out there. I know that there's some of us that have, I mean, like if it's on Facebook, some of us have lots of advertising abilities on Facebook. We can share it and put it out there. If it's, and honestly, if it's mailed to me, I'm probably, if it's bulk mail, I'm I'm probably tossing, because I've got a stack this big of business stuff to deal with. I'd kind of ignore it, you know, and I think that most people do. But if it's something that they can easily just go through and say yes, yes, no, no, and write in some things, you know, on their phone, because everybody's on their phone, I think that would be a great thing to move forward.
Does the county have the ability to put together that kind of a survey? Surveys are kind of iffy, and, you know, you have to really think about it and put it together in a way that works. Do you have that capability? Have you done that?
We have a public affairs office that would
Okay.
put the survey together.
That would be,
Mm-hmm.
maybe with our,
Any commissioners have an idea of a question to ask,
yeah, well, that,
you know, email
yeah,
them.
we might be able to help with that, with community input, you know, what do they want to see on the survey even?
We can bring this back, if you'd like, in February and give you some more time to think about potential survey questions. We don't have to rush to get the survey out next week,
No,
so.
I think that's a good idea.
We want to do it in a thoughtful manner.
To start.
And if I could add, you know, trying to tie this back to public involvement opportunities, you know, we put out a survey, kind of a simple survey. People note what their issue areas are or what their concerns are. You know, think about what's the next step for a public involvement opportunity there. Is it having a meeting in a particular community saying, well, you know, we found that people from this area are concerned about this. Can you tell us more? Is there something that we can get on the next year's work plan for the Community Development Department to look into? Or can we give this information to the Board of Commissioners for trying to address it in some fashion, right? So, think about it from, you know, starting a survey, how would you then go about increasing public involvement after that, right? You got the information, now what?
Do we have the ability to reach individual districts, like everybody that lives in a certain district? Can you pick them out and say, hey, we're gonna have a meeting here on this date, and just send it to those people, and then to try and get, I mean, if we had some sort of like a town hall meeting, you know, and say, hey, bring your concern. The commissioner from that district is gonna be there, answer any questions, or to, you know, to take your ideas directly to the board. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I don't think we could exclude anybody if they lived in, you know, Elsie and we were trying to host it for like the Classic Plains area. But yeah, we can certainly pull together like mailing lists of people who live in our areas or advertise directly to areas in those communities that those people live in. Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to your idea is to set up some sort of meeting, you know what I mean, like in the individual areas, and go to a couple here and there, or one in our district, and each one of us take our districts, and anybody who has concerns about that, yeah, they can, it might be easier to bring them to something like that. Some people don't like public speaking, they'd rather just send it in and be anonymous, but either way, yeah, I mean, kind of like a recruitment type campaign to try and fill some seats.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So would your commission like to circle back on this item in February, and just have another discussion, think about public involvement opportunities, things that could be done, meetings, locations,
Survey questions?
survey questions, yep.
I think that's a great idea.
Would that be in the form of even a draft survey by then? Is that possible?
We could try and cook something up, yeah, to get it started, yeah. And then if you have ideas for specific questions to ask, like specific problem areas you're aware of that you want feedback from people on, then we can work on it from there and get it pushed out before March.
Yeah, I like that. That's
Or
a
by
good
March,
thought.
I should
Kind of draft that we could look over and add to or subtract from.
Because I would have input from the community by then, too.
Any of our commissioners online have any concerns or questions or comments about community involvement?
Only thought that I had was, I think the survey is a great idea, and I think that a component of that should be asking the questions of what would get more citizens involved, in-person meetings, meetings in each planning area, something online, like, leverage that as an opportunity to see, do people just, are they too busy and they can't attend, or they don't know what's happening? That'd be the only thing I would say, would be a suggestion.
I really appreciated at the beginning of this discussion, Gail had mentioned, just even helping people understand what things are, what the issues are, and a lot of times these issues are so large and dynamic that, getting it down to like a summary, helping people understand why is this important to me, or how does this impact me. So I thought that's really important. Because even sitting here, often we're, wading through things and having to really take a lot of time to understand, these topics. So for an average person to know why does this matter to me, if that's even possible, because sometimes it's very difficult to put these things in a nutshell. And then the survey I think is a great idea. And all the discussion, I really agreed with all the discussion everybody was having in that. So I'm sorry, it's hard to chime in, when you're online, and that's our own faults for when we're out here, not able to attend in person. But I think everything you guys said was right on par with what I was thinking too. So that's really all I have to add to that.
Perfect. One thing that came to my mind is, what if we put together some sort of a flyer, or just like a informational flyer on what we do, and not like a bylaws type description, but something, hey, there's concerns in your community or concerns in your, this is how you get involved. Something that's just not more fun, but more simple, that people might catch their eye and say, hey, I've got problems. Now I know how to do it. I mean, instead of thinking that you're coming to a public hearing that is like really intimidating, because I know the first time I showed up here, I was pretty intimidated, never been to one before, and I almost didn't come in the door. It was different, because I have no problem having concerns, but it was how to voice those. And I think that we're pretty open to listening to anybody in the public, and it shouldn't be as intimidating as some people might think, because it's easy to talk here. But that was one of the ideas I was thinking. But yeah, let's table this till next month, and if any commissioners have any survey question ideas, public involvement opportunity ideas, either bring them to the meeting or email them in, and we can put them on the agenda for next month to talk about if it's ahead of time. Does that sound good with you guys?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 5, administrative variance process and modifications to approval, applications, and conditions of approval.
All right, this is my item. So tying this back to our current year work plan, we do have that task 1, which is code modernization and maintenance. And so over the past several years, we've identified this as a potential work plan item, but have just never had the time to get to it. And so there are 2 processes, I think, that the county needs to establish that would be helpful to people who need to either make minor adjustments to a development requirement, and also if they need to make amendments to an approved plan or a condition of approval. And we've run into this a few times over the past couple of years, which is why it's been in the back of staff's head thinking about this. But several other jurisdictions do have what's called an administrative variance procedure. The county has a type 3 procedure, which involves a hearings officer, a $2,000 fee, and a public hearing. And you follow that path if you want to deviate from a dimensional requirement by any amount. So if you are asking for a 1.5-inch variance, you take the same pathway as someone who needs a 10-foot variance. So we felt that having a more simplified process in place with very rigid parameters which are spelled out in your staff report, would be helpful to people who may just need that little bit of extra flexibility in order to get their development over the finish line. And so what we've proposed would be an administrative variance procedure. It would be type 2, so it's not a public hearing, but there is still public notice that would go out to property owners because this is a discretionary decision. So we can't just do it in-house over the counter. It is something that's going to require public notice and the ability for the public to comment, also tying into our public involvement improvements. But it is a much simpler process. We would propose establishing thresholds that you cannot surpass, and if you do, then you have to go through the full variance process. We've looked at several other jurisdictions, including Douglas County and Hood River counties, and then the cities of Carleton, Lapine, McMinnville, and Ontario, kind of getting a smattering of flavors from across the state. And we've put together the tables that look at how other cities and jurisdictions handle this, and then what we would recommend moving forward. And so today I just wanted to bring this to you as an item for discussion, because we haven't talked about this before. I didn't just want to spring the ordinance on you and say, can you give me a recommendation on this? But I wanted your Planning Commission to have a chance to look at it, think about it before we bring it back for the formal public hearing. One thing that we are not recommending be included in the administrative variance procedure, actually two things. Lot size variances, because for the most part, those are established by state statute. The rural residential lands have a minimum 2-acre lot size, so we cannot deviate from that, and that has been our policy since 2003 when new legislation was passed at the state level. Also, we would not recommend administrative variances for oceanfront building height because those are typically very controversial and probably deserve the level of a full hearing simply because there is a strong possibility of litigation at that point. But we have laid out our recommendations for things like setback variances other than oceanfront building setbacks, lot coverages, lot width and depth ratios, and remember what else we've got in here. But I think there's like 10 different items that we've covered. Building, some building height variances, fence and wall height, parking. We didn't recommend any parking variances administratively also, simply because we've just done a very thorough update to the parking regulations and brought them much more closely aligned to reality than they were previously. But that might be something that you may want to discuss as the Planning Commission as to whether or not they could be administrative parking variances as opposed to having to go to the hearings officer. So, but really, this is just for your immediate discussion. If you have items that you want staff to go back and reconsider or add, we can certainly do that and bring it back for further discussion before we schedule the public hearing. If you're comfortable with what is here right now, then we can bring it back for a public hearing in February.
I thought it looked good to me. I kind of wondered what an example would be of 1 inch versus 10 feet, but I'm sure they exist.
Yeah, so oftentimes what we run into is that someone may want to partition a property, but we have frontage requirements along the road for parcel width. And so someone may have a 125-foot lot width, but maybe their parcel is not 250 feet, maybe it's 249 feet. And so because of that, they're prohibited from partitioning their property unless they go through a full variance process. This would give them the ability to do an administrative variance and be able to make that partition happen.
Okay. Good idea.
And then when they come to your office, you guys are going to look at what they're proposing and then decide and let them know which route they need to take.
Right. Yeah, so if within the threshold, and I forget what we proposed would be the threshold for parking, or not parking, lot width. But say you can deviate by 10% through the administrative variance process. So 10% for a lot width of 125 feet would be 12.5 feet. So as long as they were asking for less than that, then we would do it administratively, send out the public notice, just like we do for partitions and conditional uses, and have that 10-day public comment period, and then issue the notice. There would still be criteria they have to meet. You can't just ask for it because it's what you want. So if you have a lot and you want to build a house, but you just don't want to have a 10-foot setback, that doesn't get you an administrative variance. You know, if you have a lot and the back has a steep slope and slopes down, and so you've got to push the house forward an extra 5 feet, you know, to keep it off the edge of the drop-off, you know, that would be a candidate for an administrative variance, potentially.
And that's all decided with.
Yeah. But still applying the criteria and making sure those thresholds are not exceeded. But so,
Right now, it all goes to the hearing. You're trying to simplify it a little bit more to ease up some
yeah,
of that,
yeah,
streamlined a little bit more.
yeah.
Lower the cost.
And lower the cost. We would propose a $500 application fee for the administrative variance as opposed to the $2,000 for the hearings officer, type 3. And then, sorry to keep talking, but then the other change that we've proposed is currently we have no way to modify an existing approval unless the applicant resubmits a new application. And we had been modifying approvals, but then our land use council told us that because we don't have this process in our code, we shouldn't be doing it that way. So we would like to establish that because we have run into that situation quite a bit in the past couple of years where people, because ODOT comes back and makes a change, they need to get a condition modified, and it doesn't make sense to have them submit a brand-new DUP application, a $1,200 application fee, just so we can modify one condition that.
You guys,
No argument here, so.
you guys want to further look at this or discuss it, or you're planning on bringing it back to us?
Yeah, we're going to do a work session with the board on January 28th, as we haven't discussed this with them either. If they are good with it, we would propose bringing it to your commission in February for a public hearing, unless either you or the board have concerns about it, in which case we'll follow that direction.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, simplifying anything and not having to go for a process if it's something small and simple, because I know that there are a lot of small, simple, can fall under this.
That can be deal breakers otherwise.
Yeah, that don't need to go to actual hearings, and, I'm assuming that, the time process of this would be much quicker than the other way as well.
Yeah, because the full hearing requires, I believe it's a 21-day public notice or 20-day public notice, and then the time to schedule the hearings officer, and then the time to wait for the hearings officer decision, and then the appeal period after that. It can easily run about 3 months. This type of process for the administrative variance, we should be able to do once the application's complete in probably about a month, maybe less.
If I'm reading this right, the pre-application meeting required, you're not gonna require that.
No.
Isn't that, I mean, isn't that where somebody would, or they'd have to schedule it with you, but come in and say, hey, what do I need to do? Isn't that kind of the pre-application meeting that they have to do anyway, or?
We would always have that interaction, but what we're trying to avoid is the formal pre-application meeting where we actually charge people a fee. We bring in anybody who might be affected in terms of other departments or agencies, and we bring in all the staff and we sit down and have a formal meeting. Most likely, this is going to be something that's going to be explained and talked about over the counter when somebody comes in without an appointment and just says, you know, this is what I want to do, and staff says, well, you're too close to the property line, you know, but this may be an option for you.
Perfect.
How many of these do you have a year?
I know the amendments, the modifications, we've probably had 3 or 4 in the past year.
Yeah, easily, I think.
Yeah. And then in terms of administrative, I don't know.
I want to know in terms of like administrative variances or what would qualify as an administrative variance, but we see maybe 2 or 3 variances in any given year. They're pretty uncommon, but that's also because they can be burdensome, right, currently. And if we make them easier, we might get more of them.
I'm good.
Yeah, I think we're okay with it if you have, well, see how your board meeting goes, your work session, and if they're good with it, then I think we're all good with it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All righty. Project status report.
Okay. Rebecca, could you pull up the agenda item number 6 for me, please? All right. Well, welcome to 2026. Your project report, status report for the month of January. There's a few new items on here, which is really what I'm going to touch on right now. We have a proposed update to our communications facilities code regulations. This is a section that covers like telecommunications facilities, like wire, cell towers and stuff. It's code language. I apologize, I don't know exactly when it was drafted, but it was drafted some time ago. Cell tower needs have changed, verbiage has changed, and the code is a little cumbersome to use. So we're just looking to do sort of a maintenance on that code section to try and modernize it, to make it easier to use for us and for cell tower companies who work in so many jurisdictions and have so much conflicting information from this state or this county or this city to everyone. So trying to make it easier for them is going to really help them. It's really going to help them out, and it's going to help us out too. The other new item on your list is an update to our signage regulations. So the county has regulations on types of signage, signage in specific zones, size, location, how much lighting can be on a sign, what types of lighting. And the code section is notoriously overreaching in some cases. So for example, if you a sign could be almost anything, and you're supposed to get a sign permit for almost anything, which seems overburdensome to property owners. So for example, I think there's an exemption for like real estate sales signs, but if there weren't, somebody would have to get a $60 sign permit to place a for sale sign in their yard, which just seems unnecessary. And then furthermore, a real example where somebody had signs on their property that people in the surrounding area had issues with, and they had asked, well, what I say I have sheep on my property and I spray paint some letters on the side of my sheep. Does that count as a sign? And I had to say, you know what? Under the definition, it kind of does. I can see it. So there's just some cleaning up that needs to be done. It hasn't really been an issue for people, but more of an issue for staff, just working with a chunky code that we'd like to fix. So that'll be coming down the pipeline, hopefully in March. And so if your commission has any ideas on signage or ways to improve signage, promote signage, should we be promoting signage? Should we be restricting it? Think about it. Let me know.
I assume that doesn't extend to what people put on their T-shirts and walk around in? Or...
No, just things affixed to a location.
That's temporary signage.
Trailer on your property and put whatever you want on it, because it's not a sign, it's a vehicle, right?
That's the idea, yeah. We want to make sure we totally differentiate that in the code, because it's a little muddy right now. And that about does it for your, January project status update.
Perfect. Can you go back to the agenda for me? Thank you. All right, January 2026 Director's Report.
Yeah, so lots of things happening. Staff, David and I have been working with the fairgrounds and the fair board on their strategic plan update. Their strategic plan dates back to 2009. So we met with the fair board at their work session this past Wednesday and are trying to get some information from them about peer fairgrounds they would like us to survey, identifying some of the competing venues like the Armory or the Granges that compete for events, and then identifying some stakeholders and survey questions that they would like us to be using as we do begin our public outreach. And they are very encouraging of getting lots of input, so I did include their form in your agenda package today if you have any thoughts about any of those questions. If you could complete the form by January 23rd and mail it back to me, email it back to me, take a photo of it and send it to me in an email. But if you are interested, and feel free if you have people in your communities, in your districts who would also be interested, letting them know as well that this process is going on and that we will be gathering their input as well. We've also gotten a new grant from Department of Land Conservation and Development to do the follow-up work from our 2023 Housing Assistance Grant. So the grant that we got in 2023 looked at unincorporated Clatsop County and the 5 cities and looked at buildable land inventory, housing inventory, existing infrastructure needs, and compiled reports for each of those jurisdictions. And so following up on that now, we're going to be doing sort of a deeper dive into each of these areas, and each jurisdiction will be identifying 1 to 2 opportunity sites where housing could potentially occur. And what the consultant will be working on is identifying regulatory barriers, natural hazard barriers, developing site development scenarios, and market feasibility analyses for each of those sites that have been identified. So that work is just about to kick off. For the county, we are looking at a site out in Napa where Public Works currently has a stockpile out by the 4-H building. And then there are some properties that are in the city of Warrenton that the county owns that could potentially be a good site for housing. I think it's about 10 acres all total. So, so just starting that process. No updates on FEMA buyout. It's in limbo. Nobody is saying anything, and I have no idea what's happening. So, we have 3 commissioners whose terms will expire this year, which include Commissioner Linder, Commissioner Sitanovich, and Mr. Carmichael. Your terms all expire at the end of June this year. So in the next month or so, we'll start the recruitment process again. If you do wish to be reappointed, then you do need to submit a new application. And those will all go to the board, and I foresee a similar process with interviews if needed, and then the appointment process so that everybody's in place by July 1st. So just a reminder, if you have questions about that, please just reach out to me and I can get application forms out to you as well.
So you think that might be starting in March?
We will start the recruitment because the commissioners like to have a couple of months for people to reply. They just don't like a 2-week recruitment period.
Okay.
So, the Planning Commission bylaws will be going tomorrow night to the board for their review and approval. So that's up. We've talked a lot about the budgeting process and the work plan, so probably nothing more to say on that. And we've talked a lot about staffing updates. We do have the new building permit tech starting on next Wednesday, along with a new code compliance specialist. So we'll have both of those starting. Laura's last day will be January 31st, and then she will be working casual after that until June 30th. We are still in the process of hiring an electrical inspector. We do have an interview scheduled, I believe, for later this week. So we will hopefully find a good candidate there. And then just a reminder that our building official intends to retire at the end of this coming fiscal year, or the end of this fiscal year on June 30th. So that recruitment will be starting as well very shortly. So if you know anybody who is qualified and would like to be a building official, you know, please encourage them to apply. So.
Seems to be a problem lately.
You know, it's such a problem. First of all, it's easy to become a building official. You just take the course and take the tests, but it's the knowledge and the ability to interact that you can't teach.
Who is it that is responsible? Is that do you hire them?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And other than that, David already covered upcoming projects that we are working on, and so I've just included the fairgrounds form if you want to complete that, and then I just included a copy of our DLCD grant scope of work that we submitted, so you have an understanding of what we'll be working on over the next 2 years. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
No?
None, thank you.
Oh, one more thing. For anybody who's interested, and I don't expect anybody to tune in for this, but Chair Quilo is addressing a legislative committee on small business and trade this afternoon at around 11:30, and he's going to be talking about the fast track program proposed by the governor's Oregon Prosperity Roadmap, and talking about how that could benefit Clatsop County. So he's out there doing his bit for economic development and talking to the state, so.
All right, we just adjourn now? Oh. All right, election of officers. Current chair is myself, vice chair is Commissioner Johnson. We just take nominations.
Yeah, you just need a nomination, you don't need a second.
All right, let's start with vice chair.
Anybody else wants to be vice chair, I'd be happy with that, or, I'd be willing to stay on as vice chair as well.
I nominate Commissioner Johnson.
Second. Second.
Third, fourth, all those in favor does anybody else have any nominations? All those in favor for Commissioner Johnson as vice chair?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous. Congratulations. I'm
Thanks, everyone.
sure it's turned right back around on me. All right, nominations for chair.
I'd nominate Commissioner Crushhour to remain chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? I'm happy to stay on if you guys would like me to stay on. Any other nominations? No. All those in favor for myself to stay on as chair?
Aye.
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 It is unanimous, so that's the only two positions, right?
That's it.
We don't have a
Yep.
sergeant at arms or anything else.
Yep.
All right, does anybody have anything for good of the order? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Seeing nothing, all right. Let's adjourn the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right.